Hi, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 224 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, welcome back to episode 224 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you are new here, hey, how are you? Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here this week. I hope that you will stay for a very long time and bring lots of friends. If you've been here before, you guys know the deal. I love you deep. Thank you so much for continuing to support me. I wouldn't be at this point without you, and I'm glad that you stuck around, and I'm glad that you bring friends. Please continue to bring more, and welcome back again. So before we get started, it's really important to me that we lay the foundation. For those of you that have been rocking with me for a while, you know, it's really important to me to be very clear about what we're doing here and what this space is. So essentially how I treat this space, it's a safe space, so I treat it like a house. I realize that it's built on two very important foundations, and that is clarity and love. Clarity is really straightforward. I just want to make sure that you understand that I created the Well Done Life brand because I believe in the power of women. I believe in the power of us sharing our stories so that we have an opportunity to create spaces where we can be vulnerable, where we can be authentic, where we can learn from each other. So I share a lot of my journey here and doing this thing called life, as well as I also spotlight other women as an opportunity for you to see that a lot of the things that you're facing, other people have faced, and that you can overcome them too, just like we did. Or if we're struggling with something, maybe this is an opportunity or a space where you can use this as a resource to try to figure out, how to pivot away from it, how to move in a different direction. You are in control of your life a lot more than you give yourself credit for being. And also you'd be surprised how inspiring your life really is. So hopefully this encourages you to share your story too, because I think more of us sharing our story kind of helps us break down a lot of the barriers that separate us and allows us to really lean into the power of us as women. So welcome. And I hope that you will feel seen, loved, and supported in this space. And then speaking of love is actually the other foundation of this house. Everything that we do is going to be rooted in love. And I mean good love. I'm talking reciprocal love. I'm talking love from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet kind of love. I want you to feel real. And so important for me as we dive into other topics and do everything before we even get all into all that, I like to make sure that I send you prayers. And my prayers, I believe, are being prayed across the world. I have that grandiose thinking just because I believe in the power of prayer together, as they say, when two or more come together in prayer, our prayers get magnified. So I like to make sure that I start every episode with that because it's just the foundation of me. And I want you to understand that, like I said, this space is really about love. And I'm always going to want the best for you no matter what. So I'm standing on peace. That's my first prayer. I cannot not stand on peace. I mean, we are in a season where we all need peace. And so I truly am praying that this week that you will carve out time for yourself where you're able to have peace. And when I'm talking about peace, I want you to be able to just stand still for a moment and breathe. I want you to be able to not feel the pressure to run to the next thing because, society just constantly has us trained to do everything all at one time. I want you to be able to just take a breath and stop. I want you to be able to take a moment and stop and breathe and give your body time to regulate itself. Give your mind time to regulate itself and then move forward. Don't get me wrong. I know we all have things that we have to accomplish, but I think at the same time, a lot of us are multitasking and doing things. And I don't know about you guys, but I know for myself, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing I'm good at it, but I'm not really good at it because something is always going to get missed. And that miss can create a level of stress inside of you, a level of anxiety inside of you that could have been avoided if you just took a step back and just breathe. So I'm hopeful that you will find the power in your breath. I hope that you will find the power in your silence because it can help direct you. It can help guide you, especially in moments when you're feeling overwhelmed. Take a moment to breathe. Give yourself the peace and the regulation that you need in order to go forward. And then my next prayer is also going to be around just clarity. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about it because the streets are really clear. I don't know if it's clarity or emotion, but that's a whole nother part of the conversation. But I'm wishing for you clarity. I want you to be able to see things as they truly are, not to allow your emotions to cloud your decisions, but to be able to see things for what they are, facts, and to be able to make clear decisions based upon the facts. I have to kind of emphasize facts just because, again, we live in a society sometimes that serves information so quick that the facts can get lost in the details of the salaciousness of the detail. It's important that you give yourself a mandate, that you give yourself a directive to always try to see the facts. Because again, entertainment can keep you enthralled, keep you motivated, keep you focused on trying to learn about the story, but are you getting to the facts of things? And that doesn't necessarily apply to all the craziness that's going on in the entertainment world. I'm just talking about in life in general. Always stick to the facts because the facts are what they are. They can't change. And sometimes, like I said, it's very easy for us to get distracted by the juiciness of the story, but never miss the facts because the facts are where you can make decisions. The facts are where clarity lies, and clarity is essential in times where things are always swirling because they're swirling to distract you from what you need to do. And you don't want to get caught up in the distraction. You want to be able to continue forward and move through and make a decision based on clear facts. And so my final prayer, rounding us out, is abundance. And I'm always going to pray abundance for you. I mean, of course, I want you to be financially abundant. I want you to be able to have the desires of your heart in a way that you are able to bless yourself and to other people, because I just truly believe that. But I also want you, again, to be abundant in your spirit. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of loudness in the world. There's a lot of craziness in the world. And I don't necessarily know sometimes it's the truth or the emotion. But the one thing that I feel that a lot of us have kind of lost sight of, or we just maybe need reminders of, maybe we haven't lost sight of it, is that abundance is not always tied to material things. Abundance is, like I said, having those moments and conversations with the people that you love. It could be just as simple as being able to sit in peace and have a cup of tea. It could be as simple as being able to go to bed at night as soon as your head hits the pillow. I mean, there are just so many moments that can fill your soul. Never lose sight of those things, because those things are going to sustain you a lot more than the money. The money's going to come and go. It's going to come and go. I mean, we're seeing it. I mean, outside is super expensive. I literally was outside for a couple of hours and I've definitely spent a couple $100. And I'm like, it's crazy out there. But at the same time, I know that it's not tied to just those things. I'm very blessed because I have family, I have community, I have beautiful friends, I have love. And I just truly feel grateful for those things. And that keeps me in a spirit of being abundant, because when you are abundant, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, you attract all those things in. You have to have a mindset of belief that you will acquire more. And a lot of times, if you are so focused on, trying to do things from a material perspective, you are unsatiable. You are not believing that you are making more. You're believing and working with an energy like you have to have more because you're coming from a place of lack versus coming from a place of abundance, realizing that money comes to you, abundance comes to you, you attract money, you bring in money and live accordingly. And that kind of energy comes versus giving out the negative of being in pursuit, chasing it like you can't get enough of it. So it's just a mindset shift. And it's one of the things that I've had to learn and I've spoken about as I was on my financial recovery journey, because y'all know, I've been honest about it. I filed bankruptcy several years back. I've been through it. And so I'm just telling you, even as I learned how to pay my own bills and do everything the right way, I also had to learn how to change my thoughts around money. I had to change my perception because I can't constantly feel hungry and desperate for it. I have to believe that I actually naturally attract it. Like money is drawn to me and it comes to me. And even when I have to pay it out, I've already made it back in. So that's a whole nother thing, but I wanted to make sure I add that in there because mindset, I think, is a really key thing, especially like I said, in these times. You got to make sure you got it all aligned. You have to make sure that you're cultivating a healthy mindset for you so that you can thrive mentally, physically, spiritually, and just grow and live abundantly. So those are my prayers for you this week. I am recording on Saturday, June the 7th. It's 12:25 p.m. And I'm really excited to be here. I want to thank everyone for their support of last week's episode that was honoring my godmother. I miss her. I do. And I just want to thank everyone for their support and just understanding. I just think it's very important that we really take a moment to recognize the impactful people in our lives and just realize that there are many women in our lives, many people who shape us, and we never want to forget the relationship that they have and honor them through our lives and also value them while they're here with us, because time is fleeting, life is fleeting, and you just never know how things will go. So don't have regrets, live light, live free, honor those people while they're here, even when they're gone, and just remember the impacts that they have and be grateful that they were in your lives and cherish the people that you have that are there now and cultivate that. But this week, like I said, I'm back and I kind of want to talk to everyone a little bit about, some things that I've kind of been observing in society. I'm sure I'm not the only person, but I don't know about you guys, but it just feels like right now we are in a season of the crash out, like literally. And when I say crashing out, I'm talking about people who are just, just putting it, just collapsing emotionally. You can see it emotionally, you can see it spiritually, you see it socially. I mean, the biggest crash out I think I've seen is between obviously the president and Elon Musk. Like that was insane. Like literally they were just going back and forth on social media after just being like ABC 1, 2, 3 best buddies not too long ago, which is insane. And, these are people who are just doing all types of things to really uproot how many of us have been living and existing in this world. I mean, it's just crazy. But just to watch again, that level of crashing out. And it's not just them. I see it on so many different levels. And one of the things that it's just kind of made me think about is, are we witnessing the upcoming of truth, or do you feel like there just could be a whole lot of unhealed pain being broadcast in the world right now? I mean, because literally, I don't know about you guys, but like I said, I really feel like that's what we're seeing possibly. And I'm just trying to figure it out because, again, I'm just, focused on trying to stay over here, stay moisturized, keep my mindset together, take care of my family, be with my love, and just live my best life. But like I said, I see it's like crash out city all over. So I wanted to spend some time talking about it because, again, like I said, I think a lot of it has to deal with, are we really in the age of truth? Is the truth really loud? Or are we in a situation where we're seeing a whole bunch of people who have not invested in their healing, just out here doing what they do, and social media giving them a platform to embarrass themselves and just put everything on stage. And you know what? I'm actually going to say not even embarrass themselves, because it's really not my place to judge whether you embarrass yourself or not. But I guess broadcast trauma and make all of us the audience while we do it. So kind of let's dive into it a little bit. Let's talk about what the really crashing out really means. And I mean, crashing out, like I said, is not just wild behavior or public mistakes, but it's an outward expression of internal collapse. And, I think a lot of times what we're seeing with people crashing out is that people are burned out. People are also feeling burdened with a lot of stress and emotional things that they're dealing with. And I think all of that kind of starts to build. And then you start to see the spill out. I mean, like literally, we have to think about it with some of these things that are happening. People have been holding in a lot of different trauma over the years. And I just think that people have always been in a situation where they have felt these pressures, these stressors, and it just all of a sudden got to the point where it's like, I'm at the tipping point and here you go, I'm gonna let the world see. And I've never personally had a public crash out. I think I've definitely had some private crash outs, like definitely in times of duress and stress. as I think about it. Like, I didn't go on social media or any of that. No. But I definitely, in my last crash out, I was just like, I'm tired. I reached my capacity, and I think about it where it had an audience. It was with my family when my brother passed away. It was just so many pressures going on in reference to, I think, dealing with how other people were treating us based upon how they felt things were being handled, what they wanted versus what we wanted, and just no communication going on. And I can say that clearly just looking back. But in that moment when I crashed out, when I just like was literally like, fuck it, excuse my language, y'all can do this. You asked to see the boss, so they sent me, and I'm here, and now you have a problem and you don't want to bring the problem to my face. I literally was just like, at my tipping point. I think it was more so because I was tired and I was upset that I was in this situation, not upset that I was in a situation of having to take care of my brother's last services, but upset at the situation that this is how his life ended up. This is not what I would have wanted for him. I never wanted him to be in a situation where it's kind of like you're going from pillar to post and now all of a sudden you're gone. You didn't have a chance to live and sit on the porch like I had always wanted you to. And so all of the emotional pressures of trying to manage that, as well as manage the feelings and expectations of my family, had just kind of brimmed over. And I tipped out. I crashed out, I guess. And I had a moment where I just broke down and I was yelling and I was upset, and my anger just kind of spilled and spilled and spilled. And I think about that because, as an example, just because how many of us are in those positions right now where it's just like your emotions are building and building and building, and people are just piling and piling and piling on you, and you really want it to spill out, but you haven't. And then all of a sudden it's just that one trigger point, and you're just like, you know what, that's it. This is how it's going to be. All right, you asked for it. Let's go for it, and you put it out. And I hate to say it as Black women, because we are often ignored until we either suppress the traumas or we erupt. And literally when we erupt, everybody just kind of stands still and stands back, and they're just like, whew, I'm going to let you get that out, let you feel what you feel. Or some people can actually relate because they feel the exact same way that you do. It's just that they haven't crashed out yet, but you did. So thank you stepping into the zone as the representative crash out person, and you get a chance to help everybody express their feelings. But then you're left kind of, hurt and depleted that you've done this. Because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I've had crash out moments, that's how I feel. It's like, why was I not in control enough of my emotions to be able to avoid that? So for me, I'm not a fan of the crash out. I don't really enjoy it. I don't want to be in that position. And I have to admit, I govern my life now in a way where I don't allow myself to be in that kind of circumstance. And we'll talk more about that, because I think those are things that we should talk about. Like, we have to all understand life is going to keep lifing. Things are going to keep getting thrown at us, but we have to make a choice in ourselves that we have decided we just don't want to crash out anymore. We don't want to allow ourselves to be in situations where we are surrounded with people who could potentially make us crash out. And I don't care if that means my family or not. I am just not going to allow myself to be in this place, because I have decided I want to live differently. I want to live lighter, because healing is lighter. And I was talking to my boyfriend this week about that, because I think one thing that a lot of people don't recognize, healing is a lot of work. It is. And I think people recognize that's a lot of work. And some people, because of that work, because they're afraid of it, they don't understand what it entails, make the decision to sit in the trauma, because the trauma is easier to deal with. Yes, they're in pain. They understand they're in pain, but they know that the pain that they're dealing with. But when you start to heal, it's the things that get revealed. It's the things that come to the surface that seem so frightening, so scary, that they would rather sit in trauma than to actually do the work to get healed. And I definitely want to make sure I say that again. I think there are a lot of people out here who have made the decision to sit in the trauma because it's easier to understand that trauma. It's easier to understand that hurt because you've gotten so used to dealing with it than to take a chance on yourself, to step out and to start to heal, because you don't know what's going to get revealed. You don't know what's going to come up. And that uncertainty, that creates anxiety, and that anxiety creates you in a place where you would rather suffer than to heal. And one thing thing I would want to tell anyone who's in that position, if you are on the fence about it, the one thing that I would tell you is that, yes, healing is hard. It's hard work. It is facing yourself. It is seeing the things inside of you that were hidden that you just may not have understood come to the surface and you deal with them. But the lightness that comes from it is far greater than the pain that you're experiencing now. And to feel light is to be at rest. To feel light is to be free. That could be something that can reveal in you a block that has been limiting you from your next level. So it might be worth taking a chance. And I'm going to keep it kind of biblical here because I think it's important. Luke 12:2, verse 2-3, nothing is hidden that will not be revealed. One thing that we have to understand is that a lot of times when things are coming up, they're coming up for you to deal with them. They're coming up for you to move forward with them. And it's like God isn't just exposing others. He's revealing what's buried in us too. Because I hear that a lot too when you see all the commentary around when people crash out, that's just God exposing the truth, just bringing out the truth. And I think one thing we just have to recognize is that, yes, it is a revelation, but it's a revelation of what's maybe been buried inside of us that needs to be healed. Because a lot of times the things that people are crashing out about, like I said, they're rooted in trauma. They're built around traumas that they've experienced. They're triggers to them. And so there's things in them that needs to be healed. There's things in them that needs to be, you got to heal to reveal. As the great philosopher Sean Carter said, you can't heal what you don't reveal. And so you have to be able to have those things lie to the light. And I think God has just given you an opportunity when those things come out for them to come out, because it's something that it can't be hidden anymore. And I think the difference is that this has always been happening through the cycle of life. Is just that right now, with the rise of social media and all of the different access and everything that we all have, the beauty in it, but the curse in it as well, is that now trauma has a microphone. And see, a lot of times, with that microphone, now you get more of a real clear understanding of how people are really feeling, how they're really navigating this season that they're in. And let's talk about really what it looks like. Because, we're seeing it all on full display. Really what we're doing is we are seeing people who have unhealed trauma, and they are being aggressive. And using that aggression as a way of what they say, keeping it real, just keeping it so real. I knew people like that many moons ago. I feel blessed I don't have this surrounding me now, but I had a few people in my life, not a lot, but a few, who like to, as they say, quote unquote, keep it real with people, And when I'm talking about the quote unquote, keep it real, I'm doing the air quotes too. Those people who love to tell somebody about, their flaws. And, loves to tell somebody, oh, if you had just done this, this, and this, I just got to tell you, because I'm just trying to keep it real with you. I'm your friend, I will always keep it real. And you're tearing this person down while at the same time talking about trying to keep it real. And so it starts to feel like the insight and advice that they're giving you is like getting slapped in the face because you've been stung by them. I'm sure you've seen people like that, or I hate to say it, maybe sometimes you've been that person. We've all been through seasons, and like I said, I've had an opportunity to see that firsthand, and it's very, very triggering, and it's very traumatizing, and it's just unfortunate that there are people like that who just kind of like manifest their pain onto other people in that way. And we've also seen church hurt on display. I've even seen it recently in social media with Tiffany Montgomery versus Jackie Hill Perry, Preston Perry, and Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell. I don't even really fully understand the inner workings of it. I'm just bringing it up because some of the comments that I've seen have just been a bit distasteful. I definitely would want to kind of say that I think all of that probably should have been a phone call versus a public display. But that is one of the other things, like I said, on social media, is like trauma gets a stage now, and we get to see it play out in social media versus adults picking up phones and meeting together, having FaceTimes and conversations. And now also you see generational trauma surfacing without the tools to process it. I mean, we see people out here projecting their hurt as a way of, I'm just going to keep it real, just getting likes and getting attention. And a lot of times it is attention seeking, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's people who are just willing to be out here because they need a voice, they need a community. And also, I hate to say it, let's all keep it real. Social media rewards outrage. It rewards it by giving these people likes and follows and shares. And that in turn, in some instances, translates into dollars. But what happens when wounded people build platforms on pain instead of healing? I mean, let's really think about that. What happens then that moment? Because then all you do is create a platform of pain, a platform that is just focused on being outraged, on being engaged, on being triggered, versus trying to create something in the world that can help address those issues. One thing that I think we have to kind of think about, and I found this quote and I want to share it with you, is that when we don't tend to our wounds, we weaponize them. And like I said, I think what we're seeing is that people are utilizing their wounds in a way to weaponize. And some of them, I think, are inadvertently doing it. But then there, I think, a lot of people who, I'll be honest, they do know that they're doing it. And they've made the decision to do this because this decision to do this is creating a platform, creating a space, creating a community for them. The one thing, though, that they just don't realize is that by doing that, they're creating harm. And we are creating a cycle because, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who look to a lot of influencers, as I'll be honest, as their guide, the barometer of how they act. Not all of us do, but there are some people who do. And some people, want to model the behavior that they see because they think that's the cool thing to do. And so they model that. And then all you do is give that trauma life. All you do is give that trauma life. And if you think about it, a lot of these people are building their trauma into a brand. And when did trauma become branding? I mean, they don't even think about the cost of unprocessed pain. They're thinking just about abundance and affluence and influence, but not accountability and responsibility and generational impacts because of the rise and the use and the intention of social media. So I think that means that we kind of have to start to look at the cost of what unprocessed pain really looks like, because trauma that isn't processed doesn't disappear, it performs. And like I said, we have this cost now that we are seeing, this mistrust in relationships, this cynicism that rises in the faith spaces, projection in our community, internalized shame and rage. And I mean, as Black women in particular, we often can carry generational pain silently until it erupts, like we discussed earlier. That is why we have to give ourselves space to feel before we speak, and to be able to take a moment to process, to regulate, and then move forward. Because if we think about it right now, what we are processing, what we are going through, what we are healing through are creating roots. And we have to recognize that roots become fruit. And if we don't uproot our pain, if we don't get rid of it, it shows up in how we speak and how we treat others, how we move, how we navigate this world. And it keeps us stuck in this space where you just constantly feel a cycle of pain. And it's important that we really look at why we are stuck in these spaces and what we can do to move ourselves out, not just for us, but for the next generation behind us. Because the one thing that I will totally agree is that social media, be darned, everybody is watching. Someone is watching. Someone is watching how you move through this world, how they see you navigate the situations that they're going through, and they are inspired by you. They may not tell you, but they are inspired by you, and they want to see, they want to learn from you. And it's also even more important as you are a root for your family. You know, you are the generational compass. The things that we endure, the things that we see are the products of our ancestors. And the things that we overcome are the product of their perseverance, their prayers, their strength. We are that next generation. So we have to now make sure that we are doing the work within ourselves so that we don't have to suffer, so that trauma doesn't have to stay unhealed, so that we can be better, so that the next generation can be better, so the next generation can be freer, so that we can personify what healing looks like living in a loud world. And so shifting into that now is what it looks like to heal, like I said, in a loud world, because the world is loud. The world is going to stay loud. It's always going to be loud. And that's why, to me, it is so important that you find points in your life where you can carve out peace for yourself, where you can carve out healing for yourself, because I think it's really important to me that you name your pain privately before airing it publicly. And when I say naming your pain privately before airing it publicly, I think a lot of times some people utilize social media, which we've talked about before, as like, you know, a mouthpiece for how they're feeling. And so you project that mouthpiece out there without thinking about the ramifications of the words that you say. Of course, you're putting it out there because that's how you feel in this moment. And your feelings are valid because you've been wounded, you've been hurt. But when we do that, a lot of times we don't think about the ramifications. We don't think about the fact that when people see those messages, I call them sub machines. That's what I tell my boyfriend. I was like, that's what people do. You know, they sub. You see a lot of subbing on social media. You're not that person who is a part of that. They know. And people know. People know. I'm just going to say people know. And so to me, once you do that and put it in a space without talking to that person directly, they know. And they're on notice, they're on guard about it. They're probably not going to say anything because, you know, a hit dog will holler. It's an old saying if you've never heard a hit dog will holler. And because, of course, and in those instances, when I say that, that means the guilt has hit you and you've come up and now you recognize, okay, they talking about me, what I'm going to do about it. And either they're going to crash out too, or they're going to feel away, and it jeopardizes relationship building past the trauma. But at the same time, it also, like I said, puts you in a space where you are not really addressing the root of the issue. So the root takes hold and it grows further. And I think it's just very important that when you have moments like that, you have to name the pain privately. I'm of the philosophy that when someone wrongs me, and I'm in a space where I'm capable of talking about it, because sometimes I'll have to take a breath and a beat before I can actually address it. I'm going to address it with a person if I feel that the relationship is one that I want to continue. If I feel that the offense is one that is egregious and is someone that I just don't value having a long-term relationship with, I'm going to probably remove myself from the situation. I'm not going to announce it. I'm just going to draw back because that's just how I operate. If I just don't feel it, I don't feel it, and I'm going to move on. And if I do feel it, I will come to you and have a conversation in regards to how I feel, why I feel the way that I do, give you an opportunity to talk me through your rationale and why this took place, and we'll make a decision to move forward accordingly. But I'm not going to go back and forth with anybody essentially on social media. Like, that's just not my thing. And I'm not going to sub people because I don't have time for that. Life's too short. There's way too much other stuff going on. I got things to focus on. Focusing on that is just definitely not helping me. It's not helping you. So I just kind of evaluate things like that. And I think that it's important that people kind of give themselves space to look at relationships in that kind of context, because I think a lot of times we give so much energy out toward people who we do not want to have a long-term relationship with. We know that there is really no value in that for them or for you. And we don't recognize the power in being able to pull back. And just recognizing sometimes you just got to cut ties. Sometimes you have to move through things a little bit differently. And it's not trying to go out there looking for haters or any of that, because I don't believe in that too. I just think a lot of that, like I said, is unrealized trauma, is just assessing the people that you have in your circle and moving accordingly. And then, for me, therapy is also another process of healing for living in a loud world. Like I'm very consistent about going to therapy. I go every couple of weeks because it's very important to me. But I do pray, and having a spiritual direction or even journaling before venting is definitely something that I think can help, because again, when you're going to vent, it is a lot of times rooted in just fully the emotion and maybe not the logic of the situation, not the facts of the situation. And so having an opportunity to pray and get it out and go to God, or having an opportunity to journal, having an opportunity to be in therapy just gives you an opportunity to get the emotions out, to acknowledge how you feel, and then kind of look at the structure of really what the issue is and kind of be able to go back toward it with the issue at hand as the forefront. And like, again, making the decision that this is someone that you want to move forward with. Because like I said, I feel like a lot of us are just moving forward with folks and we really don't want to because we feel obligated to. I think it's time for us to stop living in cycles of obligation and start living in cycles of reality. You have control over how much access someone has to you in your life, and you have to exert that control. And it doesn't mean cutting people off, but it does definitely mean, as my mother used to tell me, you can feed people with a long-handled spoon. You don't have to be all up in everybody's face. It's just, you just don't have to. And then also recognizing that by being able to speak and share your emotions is a very beautiful thing. To be vulnerable is such a special thing. I think that's something that you should share with safe people, not just your platforms. And I think that's definitely really, really key in living in this loud world, because again, I think people sometimes are so quick to trust a platform, but not so quick to go to the safety of their group, especially when they're feeling away. You want to be able to have that. I think being able to choose vulnerability with your people, not just your platforms, will help give you balance, because it will help you be able to, really decide, are you sharing to heal or are you sharing to harm? Because I think sometimes we recognize that peace isn't quiet because we're hiding. It's quiet because we're whole. And let me say that again. Peace isn't quiet because we're hiding. It's quiet because we're whole. We're whole. We've made the decision to move in a way that honors ourselves as a person, not just a moment, not just based on emotion. And a lot of times I see a lot of the posts and a lot of the interactions on social media is really based on emotion. I mean, and again, I'm not judging people who are operating in that space. It's just that we just have to be clear about that. We have to have an understanding, because I see a lot of people taking everything that they see as the gospel. And I think sometimes we just maybe need to have a more skeptical lens about that, because we have to understand that people are still human. People are still processing trauma or not processing trauma, and people are giving you information based upon what they are feeling and thinking and going through in that particular time. So make sure you are vetting out the information before you're taking it as the gospel. And so kind of just like wrapping this up, I just would kind of ask you this question. To ask yourself, what are the quiet parts in you that need healing? Not just an audience. And I'm going to repeat that again. What are the quiet parts in you that need healing? Not just an audience. And when I say that, I think I want you to understand that a lot of times, we think that, the truth always needs to come to the light, and it will come to the light, but it doesn't always need the audience to come to the light. A lot of time you are the light. You are the biggest revelation, finding out this one thing about yourself that can help free your mind, that can help you be in a better space. And so the pressures that you're putting on yourself, believing that you need an audience, it's holding you back. It's holding you back. It's preventing you from possibly getting the healing that you need. And so recognize that you are all the audience that you need sometimes. If you need to share it more, but be selective, be thoughtful, be considerate. Think about that. Come from a place of facts versus emotion. And what I would say is that one thing that I find on the healing journey that has definitely really been a saving grace for me is having the clarity to recognize that sometimes for the sake of my peace and for the sake of me staying strong in my healing journey, I had to make a decision to heal certain parts of myself in private. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm sitting here with a big old podcast talking to you guys every day or every week and sharing some of my journeys with you and recognizing that all of my journey was not always going to be easy, and parts of it I healed in private. It wasn't for public consumption. Not everything in my life is for public consumption. I don't discuss everything here because certain things I need to keep back, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong in finding wisdom of deciding or knowing when to speak and when to rest. Not every moment is for you. Not every season is for you. Sometimes you have to sit back and observe, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then also, think about for your protection. Think about for your protection that you align yourself with environments that don't celebrate pain. Really, because there are some environments that do. Instead, try environments that are in desire, in pursuit, in active work of transforming it. You don't have to always be the one reading the blog that's constantly tearing somebody down. You don't. You don't always have to be in the know about all the little things about some celebrity's life. You don't. Sometimes you could actually take a step back from that and recognize that your life is just as entertaining, actually even more so because it's your life, and that you want your life to be as peaceful as humanly possible. So you decide to stay in alignment with things that actually will help you transform your life, that help you grow as a person, help you be better, versus staying in situations that just, to me, seem to celebrate pain, that seem to just glorify someone's trauma all the time. You don't have to do that. You can make the choice to move away from those things because you're worth it. And so for me, I really, like I said, I wanted to share this because I see crashing out all over the place. And we've all crashed out personally, professionally. I mean, the gamut. But that's not the way that we have to live. In a world that's super loud, we can make a decision to just be a little bit more silent, be a little bit more cautious, be a little bit more clever, be a little bit more discerning about how we allow our peace to be fed into, who we give our peace to, who we give our access to. Be very intentional about you because you are worth so much. And you have to remember that because the world doesn't know that, but you do. And you have to remember you are your biggest protector. You are your biggest guide. And sometimes the things that God is bringing to the light are meant to heal you, not to reveal you. So I hope that this episode kind of gave you some things to think about. And I hope that you will, maybe take a moment to sit through and think about this. If you decide to, do a little journaling or reflecting, I want to give you a prompt to help you along your journey. And so here's the prompt. Where am I speaking from? My wound or my healing? And so this is a prompt that you can use even if you don't write it down. It could be just in a situation that you're in where you can just, like I said, take a moment, take a breath, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, where am I speaking from? My wound or my healing? And then make a decision and go forward. So that is this week's episode. I hope, like I said, I'm leaving you with another way of living peaceful in a crazy little world and avoiding crash outs as much as humanly possible. I want to thank you all for listening. I hope that you will like, share, and subscribe. And please don't hesitate to let me know, send me an email, drop me a line in the post notes, wherever you see it, letting me know, what you're healing from, letting me know how you're trying to avoid crashing out, because it's easy. It's going around. It seems contagious. And whatever I can do to help support you and avoid it on the journey. And plus, I may learn a new technique. So share with your girl. Share with me, because I'm still on the healing journey. As long as I'm alive, I'm always going to be growing and healing. And I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for you. So thank you again, for, like I said, for listening. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. I'll be back next week, I think, with another episode. I will be taking a break soon, though, because I'm going to be traveling, have some travels and stuff coming up. But we'll talk about that probably in next week's episode. But please, again, like I said, like, share, subscribe. I'll make sure I have all my social information in the show notes. And I hope you will take care of yourselves and each other and have a great rest of the weekend. Talk soon. Bye-bye.